Greetings, this is Paul the Poke from paulthepoke.com. This is also, some of you folks may know me as Paul Lear from valortube.com. I'd like to welcome everybody this morning to This Week in Prophecy. We are February 26, 2022. Obviously the big highlight of or low light, I guess would be a better way to put it, of the week would be the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Got a picture of or a map of Europe here in front of us. Going to get into some of the details. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the invasion itself, but some of the ripple effects we're starting to see take place or potentially take place as a result of Russia's actions in the Ukraine. And the first one, this is compliments of Checkmate forwarded this to me. This is from Jane's Defense out of the United Kingdom. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time, but it is an overview as of a couple of days ago. So some of this likely has changed, but just a big picture of what's taken place. And the point of this map is to look at the Russian air and missile strikes against Ukraine. Again, that's as of the 24th. So that would have been Thursday, February 24th. I know I got up this morning and started looking at some things, and a lot of the action that's been reported was in and around the capital city of Kyiv. I've been corrected. It's not Kiev, it's Kyiv, as I've been told by those who are from Ukraine and speak the native language. So a lot of Russian intervention, airstrikes, various reports of, different things being shot down in and around Kyiv. So, again, if you want to take a look at this, you can go to Jane's Defense. It's a group out of the United Kingdom, and they do military analysis of things going on. So feel free to check that out. Now, the first ripple effect of Russia's actions, other people are watching what's happening around the world. And Finland and Sweden are now discussing NATO a little bit more. And so Russia hears about this. Russia threatens military and political consequences if Finland, Sweden try joining NATO. And so we'll look up here, and here's the Russian-Finland border. There's St. Petersburg. That's in Russia. But the reason Russia's throwing such a big fit over Ukraine is Russia's tired of NATO encroaching on their borders. And I think Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania are NATO countries. So now, granted, I don't think Russia has the resources just from a troop standpoint. They've got anywhere estimated from 150 to 2,000 or 200,000 troops in and around Ukraine, which by most estimates is about 75% of their military. So, they don't want Sweden and Finland joining NATO. My first thought is, well, what are you going to do about it? I mean, now they can start shooting missiles and pressing buttons. I don't misunderstand. They do have recourse, which they can follow. So, nonetheless, and here's a quote. This is from Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova. She is the blonde. You see her quite a bit. She is the Defense Ministry's spokesperson. She's the one they put out front. Russia threatened military and political consequences. Finland and Sweden should not base their security on damaging the security of other countries, and their accession to NATO can have detrimental consequences and face some military and political consequences. She also put this on Twitter. She tweets. And again, that's the reason Russia's given for attacking Ukraine is that NATO, it says down here, would not give any assurances that Ukraine would not be allowed to join the Intergovernmental Military Alliance. So they'd be fighting things on multiple fronts. We'll see. But that's the first thing that has happened. People are watching. Now also, this is also from Checkmate, from Al Arabian News. He had sent me this, and I think this is a glimpse into the future of what we're going to see. Now, clearly, Assad, pictured here, this is Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad. And he's clearly tight with Russia because they've propped him up and kept him in power. Syria, Assad says this Russia's Ukraine invasion is a correction of history. I had a little phone call. Him and Vladimir had a phone call. Here's the statement. President al-Assad stressed that what is happening today is a correction of history and a restoration of balance in the global order after the fall of the Soviet Union. Al-Assad went on further to say that Syria stands with Russian Federation based on conviction that its position is correct and because confronting NATO expansionism is a right for Russia. Here's a take home that really caught my eye. 63,000 Russian military personnel are in Syria. And you combine that with, again, estimates from 150 to 200,000. And if that's 75% of Russia's military in and around Ukraine, there's not a whole lot left to protect Mother Russia other than buttons, missiles, nukes, etc. Most of their military personnel is either in and around Ukraine or down in Syria. You look at Ezekiel 39, it starts talking about the volume of troops that will come into the Middle East to surround Israel. I mean, just doing some quick math, say we just do the low end of that, 150 plus 60, that's 210. And if, 150 is 75%, you've pretty much got the bulk of the Russian army that would have moved down into the Middle East at some point in the future, according to Ezekiel's prophecy. So, they're going to throw all their eggs in one basket at some point, it would appear, and move down into the Middle East. So, thought-provoking at the least. And the other thing too, I saw with Assad, and looking at Assad, watched this happened, and specifically in and around, we got Lugansk and Donetsk. These were, as Putin says, these were Russian. This is part of ancient Russia or old Russia, this eastern part of Ukraine, and so is the Crimea. I mean, Putin thinks these areas just belong to Russia. They're part of Russia as he sees it. And you can see how this is going to go down at some point in the future. We get into Israel. Here is the Golan Heights, the disputed Golan Heights. President Trump recognized the Golan Heights as part of Israel's land. Israel, of course, recognizes it as their land. Syria recognizes it as their land. And then we get this. This is from Russian Mission UN. This is a Russian government organization. And then they come out and make this comment a couple of days ago. We're concerned over, there's a lot going on in this tweet, and I want to break this down as I go through this. We're concerned over Tel Aviv's announced plans. First of all, they recognize Tel Aviv as the capital of Israel, not Jerusalem. Again, Trump and others recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Russia's not doing that. Russia recognizes Tel Aviv as Israel's capital. announced plans for expanding settlement activity in the occupied Golan Heights. One, United States, it's the Golan Heights. It's part of Israel. Russia, it's occupied. It's disputed. Israel shouldn't be there. Contradicts the provisions of the 1949 Geneva Convention. And since when do they care about the international, rule of law? I mean, they violated plenty of things when they went walking into Ukraine here earlier this week. But that's, it doesn't matter. And that's the thing too. It's not about what we may think is right or wrong. This is how they see the world. This is how they're going to operate, and they're going to act on how they see things. Look at what they say, watch what they do. And then if they're already proclaiming, look here, Russia doesn't recognize Israel's sovereignty over Golan Heights that are part of Syria. As far as Russia sees it, the Golan Heights belongs to Syria. Here's a picture of the Golan area and the Golan Heights. If you don't think they're going to act on that, they acted on that in eastern Ukraine. And at some point, they'll move down into the Middle East. And they'll make that same recognition. Hey, this territory belongs to Syria. This doesn't belong to Israel. And I didn't put this up here. I haven't seen a whole lot about it, but there was some discussion of this yesterday. President Zelensky of the Ukraine had reached out to Prime Minister Bennett of Israel as an independent broker for peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, and wants them to hold it in Jerusalem. No response from the Russians at this point. But so, and the reason they chose Israel is because Israel is independent and has, quote, good relations with both Ukraine and Russia, was Zelensky's thinking. Bennett was for it. But you wonder in the future, and a lot of people will say, well, what's the Israeli angle with all of this? Why would Russia care about Israel in this prophecy? Well, that just doesn't make any sense. Well, here you are in the middle of all this. Now, one, it does make sense from an energy standpoint because Israel has a lot of natural gas off the coast of the Mediterranean. But also Israel is being kind of dragged into this as a broker, negotiator in the conflict of the Ukraine and Russia. So it's gonna be what it's gonna be, but it is fascinating to watch these things happen. And as the military intervention has started, as of late February, here we are, not even a week in, and you're seeing Israel being injected into the middle of it by the Ukraine. Another ripple effect from this military intervention. Russia-Ukraine war. Egypt has 9 months before wheat reserves dry up. Tunisia imports nearly 50% of its wheat from Ukraine, has enough stored up for the next 4 months. So we're going to go back here to the map, give you guys a look at northern Africa. So here's Egypt. You got Tunisia right here. This is a big deal. 102 million Egyptians rely heavily on bread as a staple for food. And again, Egypt has 9 months. Egypt imports nearly 85% of its wheat from Russia and Ukraine. Shortage of wheat. Price of wheat's going up. Here comes inflation. I can't help but think about Revelation 6. And I believe it's the black horse talking about hyperinflation. Well, this is an event that can lead to hyperinflation. Breaking down the Egyptian storage of wheat, 5 months strategic reserves, 4 months of domestic production. That's just for bread alone. 14 countries other than Russia and Ukraine approved by the Ministry of Supply, including the regions outside of Europe, Australia, US, Canada, Paraguay. And he's right. We'll not have the same price that we're getting before this started. And there's a breakdown if you wanted to look at the Egypt wheat imports as of 2019. Some of the other, where was it? Must hurry buy and store wheat before the Ukraine-Russian war. Well, it's already started, so price of wheat, and we've seen that in the markets. Wheat's already going up. Commodities, food prices are going up as a result of this war. Several Middle Eastern countries are braced for the worst as the war continues, including Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Algeria, and Libya. So Yemen down here, Lebanon, and Syria. Algeria and Libya. Okay. Again, we're talking effectively northern Africa. Morocco, not mentioned, but they're going to have some issues probably too. Food's going up, and it'll affect us here in the West too. Don't kid yourself. And I wanted to close with this. I hear a lot of people, social media, reach out with these things, and there is a pro-Putin crowd within Christianity who they think he is justified and has the right to defend himself. They also see him as a good Christian man who's a leader, a strong leader. And again, that's the feedback I get from some folks regarding Putin. And so I saw these two articles. Putin's spiritual destiny. The religious president wants to rebuild Christendom. So, I mean, he's got a little bit of Constantine in him, like the old Roman emperor who mandated that Christianity become the state religion of the Roman Empire. And this stuff, gosh, this goes back to about 1000 AD. And if you want to get into this, I'm not going to go over it in depth. But if you want to read about this, there is history in this part of the world that goes back over 1,000 years. And historically, the Russians saw themselves as the, quote, Third Rome. Now, the Soviets wanted no part of this, but you listen to some of Putin's comments. He's not afraid to go there, and he'll use it to his advantage. And again, my point is, I'm not here to question Putin's heart, whether or not he's a true believer in Christ. That's between him and God. But I do look at some of the things he says, and some of the comments he makes. And this was like from 2013. Again, there's just going to quote what Putin said. Y'all make what you want of it. We see many of the Euro-Atlantic countries are actually rejecting their roots, including the Christian values that constitute the basis of Western civilization. They are denying moral principles and all traditional identities, national, cultural, religious, and even sexual. They are implementing policies that equate larger families with same-sex partnerships, belief in God with the belief in Satan. I think that's a pretty accurate statement. Again, the point's not, does he really believe it? Is he acting on his faith? I don't know the answer to that. Again, that's between him and God, but do look at some of the things he says. And that punk band, Pussy Riot, wanted to demonstrate against Putin. That didn't go so well for him. It's not just Russia. It's, quote, holy Russia. Mass baptism, Putin explained. His spiritual feat of adopting orthodoxy predetermined the overall basis of the culture, civilization, and human values that unite the peoples of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. He wants to do the same again, and to do this, he needs Kyiv back. Okay, so he's already got Belarus in his pocket, and he's announced within the week, troop placements in Belarus will be permanent. And so he sees, the uniting from a religious standpoint, from a Christendom standpoint, as Putin sees it, unite the peoples of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. The spiritual choice made by Saint Vladimir, that was about 1,000 years ago, still largely determines our affinity today. In the words of Oleg the prophet about Kyiv, let it be the mother of all Russian cities. So he sees Kyiv as a kind of quote spiritual capital of his vision of Russia. So check it out, see what you think of it. That's one article. Gets into Russian Orthodoxy, Eastern Orthodoxy, Ukrainian Orthodoxy, different separate views of Christianity within that part of the world. And then the last article, this is from Religion News Service. Putin is after more than the land. He wants the religious soul of Ukraine. Putin is seeking full capitulation from Ukraine, both physical and spiritual. Okay. Main Orthodox Church of Kyiv rises. That's in Ukraine. That's in northeast Ukraine, and it's been bombed extensively. That would be Kyiv right up here on the Russian border, straight east of Kyiv. Talks about Putin has used the common Orthodox character of Russia and Ukraine in his arguments for closer alignment. So again, he wants to pull these two together for religious ties, purposes, under a quote, Russia. His vision of Russia includes Belarus and Ukraine, and Kyiv is kind of the spiritual capital of what would be his vision of Russia. So again, you want to read these things. This goes back about 1,000 years. It was after the fall of the Roman Empire. And that's just history's way. Something goes away, creates a hole, a vacuum. Something's going to fill that vacuum. And the result of it in this part of the world was a great country, empire, the Rus, R-U-S empire. And frankly, Ukraine, the land that is Ukraine today, the country, the geography that is Ukraine today, was first. It came before Moscow. Kyiv was a great city before Moscow was. I mean, that's just the history of it. But you're not going to hear that today. There's a place for it as Putin sees it from a spiritual standpoint. But politically, Moscow is the home. Spiritually, religiously, Kyiv would be the home of his vision of Russia. So spend some time, look into that for those of you who are interested. Appreciate y'all taking the time this morning. I'm sure there'll be plenty of other updates taking place. And wishing everybody the best. Be safe out there. Please pray for people everywhere around that region. Unfortunately, deaths are mounting, injuries are mounting, and nothing good. So that said, and I'll close with this comment too. What was it? Internet's been shut down pretty much in Ukraine. All those communication lines have been essentially taken out by military intervention from Russia. So hard for people to get information in and out of there. Pray for those folks. Unfortunately, lots of people caught in the middle, brothers and sisters in Christ, and they need our support and prayers, and anything we can get in there to those people. So appreciate the time. You guys have a great day. Be talking to you later. Thanks. Bye.